How far would you go for something that you're passionate about? For some students, that meant showing up at the state's capitol to advocate for our environment. All that and more coming up next. Hey Honors Bulls, welcome back to the Honor Roll Podcast, the flagship podcast of the Judy Genschaft Honors College Podcast Network. I'm your host, Fabiana Requena, a fourth-year student studying marketing and business analytics, and today my co-host is Reva Gandhi, also a fourth-year student studying biomedical sciences and public health with a minor in nutrition. I am so happy to have you on the podcast today, Reva.
I'm so happy to be here.
How has your week been?
It's been good. It's been busy.
That's good. It's good to be busy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as always, we like to start off the podcast with one big question. So my question this week is, what is your favorite way to upcycle?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I love all things gardening and nature. So one of my favorite ways to upcycle is to take like tomato sauce jars and like plant stuff in them. I have a habanero tree right now that's growing. It hasn't blossomed yet, but we're getting there. And it's in like this like little old jar, which is really cute.
Reva, I actually love doing that with my glass bottles. I have like a collection of jars at home. And I've seen these videos of like these glass like water bottles or whatever. And you can like cut them and sand the top and you can use them as like drinking glasses, which I've always wanted to try.
That's so cool. You have to let me know how that works out.
Okay, I'll let you know if that becomes my new hobby. Well, as we continue to find innovative ways to give back and care for our environment, we're really excited to talk to Haran, Mahesh, Max Merchant, and honor student Carolina Gutfreund about their student organization, GenCLEO, and what role they play in climate advocacy. All that and more coming up next.
Hi, my name is Amishi. I'm a first-year student in biomedical sciences here at the Judy Genschaft Honors College. So far, my favorite class has definitely been acquisition of knowledge. My favorite memory within the class is taking a seminar with Dr. Daniel Ruth, where he talked about politics and the current day application of politics. And I found it personally very interesting because I don't have a lot of knowledge in that field. And the way that he was explaining it and the way that he portrayed those messages were very, very interesting.
Today we're joined by GenCLEO, a student-led environmental organization here at USF that focuses on climate action both on campus and beyond. I'm joined today by student leaders Carolina Gutfreund, Haran, Mahesh, and Max Merchant. Thanks so much for joining us.
Of course, it's great to be here.
So I wanted to start off by asking you all what you were studying at the moment and how you got interested in advocacy for causes like sustainability.
So I'm currently a senior, double majoring in English with creative writing, as well as interdisciplinary social sciences with environmental science, policy, and geography, as well as I'm studying here at the Honors College. I would say I kind of got my start with Climate Teach-In. I joined Climate Teach-In as a freshman, and I helped them put on the first farmers market. And that farmers market actually was part of the year that we won the CASE District 3 Excellence Award. So kind of like through that mentorship with the Honors College and people like Dr. Hargrove and Dana, it really showed me that there is like a future in this way. I wasn't really as knowledgeable about the environmental policy and environmental advocacy world. And it kind of just showed me that this is a career that I can go into and something that I realized I'm very passionate about.
I'm a sophomore, double majoring in economics and political science, and I just added a minor in Chinese language. So that's fun, but I got interested in advocacy in GenCLEO with her, and actually when we were freshmen, we were trying to find organizations to join just because we know it's good to get involved on campus. We went to a GenCLEO meeting, we did a Kahoot, and then the leader of GenCLEO told us to stay involved, and since then we've been going to every meeting and really just grown in our relationship with the organization.
I'm Haran Mahesh, and I'm studying political science with a minor in Spanish. And firstly, I wanted to correct Max. It wasn't Kahoot, it was Jeopardy. And secondly, I got my interest into advocacy through GenCLEO. I mean, I had always wanted to do something about the climate crisis. It was really something big. And like, I'm not a big environmental science background. And when I got into GenCLEO, they were just talking about policy, which is much more my focus. And I was like very much interested in, using the policy side. So I was very glad that we had an organization here on campus that could do that. And so that's where I started.
I love how there are so many facets of environmental sciences and environmental policy, especially when it comes to the advocacy piece of it. And we see a lot of that here at USF, especially with things like the Climate Teach-In and just like cleanups and advocacy efforts that we have. Can you share a little bit about what GenCLEO does and what your organization aims to do in the community?
So GenCLEO is a student-run organization on this campus. We have a parent organization called the CLEO Institute, which is based in South Florida. The main goal of GenCLEO is just to empower young people and let them know that they do have the power over their future, and kind of just to empower them to join the fight and really see that we do have a voice. GenCLEO has 13 chapters in Florida. It's a Florida-based organization, and the USF chapter is actually the largest chapter and the most involved chapter. So it's really nice to be working with such like an involved group of individuals.
And for the work we do is we try to advocate for environmental policies and climate solutions through like lobbying, or both in our student government, both to local leaders and state leaders. And we, recently actually went up to Tallahassee for a rally to tally, where we talked to elected officials about policies we wanted to be passed.
I'm curious, I'm sure within such a large organization that you have several groups to like kind of insert yourself into within GenCLEO. Can you walk us through a little bit about what that looks like?
So on campus, we've been partnering with the Climate Teach-In on a lot of initiatives, just because they have a very large reach, and also I got my start with them. So it's really nice to continue working with these great leaders, as well as we have some local partners like the Hillsborough Affordable Energy Coalition, which Haran's actually our representative for that, so he can tell you a little bit more about what they do. Yeah,
the Hillsborough Affordable Energy Coalition, our entire goal is, probably you could guess, is trying to get affordable energy while also clean energy for Hillsborough. And we work with money organizations like Food and Water Watch, where we try to make a coalition where we're trying to fight for that like promise, and make sure that we hold events like community events to showcase why your rates are going so high. We try to hold utility companies accountable, and we also talk to elected officials on what they're doing and how they can help us be more affordable and have more clean energy.
Yes, actually Temple Terrace had the second highest prices in the nation for energy bills last summer in 2025, as well as the highest in Florida. And so that's kind of something we're looking to combat. So the energy companies are allowed to ask for rate hikes every single year to something called the Public Service Commission. And for the past couple years, the Public Service Commission has just been saying yes to everything. So actually one of the bills that we did talk about in the Florida Capitol was about PSC reform, basically just asking them to add 2 more seats to the board and make sure that those 2 seats are people who have either accounting backgrounds or environmental backgrounds, to make sure that this voting board is actually taking into account the average consumer, especially like a place like Temple Terrace where the wages are not that high. It doesn't make sense for this to be the most expensive energy in the entire state, when there are definitely areas where it would be more equitable for them to have higher prices than us.
Also, I would add onto that, is also one of the major things about that bill is that it includes the affordability as a key thing to look for when they're approving it. Right now, affordability doesn't even matter. It's just, whether it's feasible and profitable. So right now, the average consumer's voices aren't even being heard. So having affordability as a concern of when they're looking at those rate hikes is very important. And that's why we went up there to advocate for it.
I know, I was just talking to my roommates about how I feel like my energy bill is triple the price that it used to be, and it's kind of frustrating.
It is, especially as a student. From your research and work in that, did you find what might be a source for that, or why they are advocating for higher prices?
Sadly, I think it's just corporate greed. It's kind of one of these situations where there isn't a clear reason why they're asking for an energy rate hike. When they go to the Public Service Commission, they actually don't really have to give that much of a reason. And like Haran was saying, the word affordability was not a requirement. It wasn't in the rules at all until this point. And so this bill, we actually haven't been told whether it passed or whether it failed. So we're unsure if this even did get passed. But really, affordability should be one of the core tenets, because if you're going to be charging consumers a certain price, you should make sure that your customers can actually afford to pay that price. so they can continue to be your customer. I just think that that's good economics.
The utility companies say it's like inflation, that like they have to increase the prices, but they're also making record profits, like so year after year. So I'm not sure why they have to increase the rates when they're making record profits, but yeah. And I it hasn't passed, or I don't think it has, as for Karakara's thing about it not passing yet. I believe it's still going through the committees. It's, a long process to get passed. So it hasn't gone to a vote yet, but I'm hoping that senators and representatives will hear our concerns and actually vote for this bill.
I'm kind of interested because Temple Terrace there's a lot of students here. So I'm surprised this is kind of where they're picking in comparison to a place like downtown or like Hillsborough, where there's more like families. But when you were in the Capitol, what was the energy up there? Like, how was the atmosphere? I'm sure it was like a high stress, high pressure kind of situation.
It was really nice, actually. The Capitol was filled with a ton of other lobbyists that day, so it was really cool to see like what the other groups were there for. And then kind of we started our morning with a youth power rally. So that was very empowering. Like, we got to meet all of the people that we would be with for the entire day and kind of just like tell stories. We had a press rally. So talking to press about why we're here, what we're here to accomplish, and kind of just letting our senators and representatives know that we're here for the people and we're here for the future of the earth. We need to preserve this earth for future generations and for future people to be able to have the same kind of beautiful lives that we're able to.
When I went up to Tallahassee, I was expecting like a lot of pushback, but what I really saw was we were able to have respectable and quality conversations bipartisanly. And, we were able to have great conversations because affordability affects everyone. And we were able to show that to a lot of representatives. And I really had great conversations up there.
It was very interesting. I actually got to meet the person who wrote the HB 1007 bill, which is about AI data centers in Florida. That bill just generally creates regulations for this. So it's not saying we can't have AI data centers. It's saying that if we are going to have an AI data center in Florida, it's very important that they have a environmental feasibility study, a sustainability study. They have to make sure it's a certain amount of miles away from schools, roads, national parks, the water, stuff like that. And so I actually did get to meet with that representative who wrote the bill. It was a very interesting conversation, and he actually was able to send us to the Senate, and I got to meet my personal senator from where I live in Miami, who is the one who wrote the Senate version of this bill. So it was very cool to see how the different representatives work together, and kind of how they were supporting us in our measures and like sending us to talk to more people to help us like further our goals.
I'm curious, while you were up in Tallahassee, what new things were you exposed to, like any bills or ideas, concepts that you weren't aware of here and that you were able to exchange with other people up there?
I think mainly for me, it was just, this was my first experience actually speaking to elected officials. I've been to city council meetings in Tampa, but this is the first time I've met really like senators or representatives. So I guess I came in maybe a little bit apprehensive. I didn't think it would be as conversational and as casual as it was, and it greatly surprised me and kind of like reframed the way I think about government, that these really are just people and they really are here to be public servants and they do care about what we have to say, and it was very nice. All the conversations were extremely respectful and extremely productive. Our organization is nonpartisan because the climate is a thing that every single person should be caring about, regardless of what your personal beliefs are. So we kind of brought that same energy to the Capitol, where we did this nonpartisanly, and we met with representatives from both sides of the aisle, and were able to get unique perspectives. And I think that's extremely valuable. I think everyone should have a seat at the table for this conversation, regardless of affiliation, opinion, or any of that kind of stuff.
I was also, on our bus, we had not just Tampa folks, but also St. Pete folks. And there's a GenCLEO St. Pete version who were kind of distinct from us. And I was able to talk to a couple of them, and I was able to meet them, and they were all nice people. And I was learning what they were doing, and it was really interesting because right now they were fighting for free public power. They're trying to get their own elected power, and that was very interesting to hear about how they're doing it. And I was able to tell them how we're doing stuff here, and we were able to bounce ideas off each other, and that was really an exciting experience.
And a previous thing, at the previous rally to Tally, not this one, I was able to meet with elected officials and hear about initiatives they themselves were proposing. One representative told me that he was consistently advocating for clean water throughout the state of Florida. So bills I had never heard of, I was able to read up on and learn more about. And we didn't come up to the Capitol to talk about these bills, but I was able to learn about them and learn how they aligned with our own interests. And so talking to these representatives gives us a good learning experience to broaden our own horizons within the climate field.
I think that's really interesting because we have a very specific picture of what our representatives or our senators look like. And then you go up and you actually meet them and you realize they're not really that different compared to us. They have goals and they have their beliefs, and they just maybe they don't know about, what is important to some of us. And I think that's why I love rallying events, because you're able to go out there and share your opinion. So I'm curious, so you have this 2-day event called Rally for Tally where you get to speak to different groups of different advocacy groups and also different groups of representatives. Take us through this event and what the days entail.
So on the first day, we bussed up from Tampa to Tallahassee. On our bus, we had USF St. Pete GenCLEO, as well as the University of Tampa GenCLEO, and a couple of representatives from a local organization called Student Power for Florida. Once we arrived, we immediately had a training and dinner where we learned which representatives we'd be speaking to, which bills we'd be touching on, and then we went into a little bit of research. So one of the main things is trying to see if the representative you're assigned either sponsored the bill, co-sponsored the bill, or wrote the bill, as well as if they're on any committees that directly relate to the bill. So that's we did something called power mapping, where we see where the representatives' ties lie and how we can phrase our conversations in order to not only appease them, but try to get them on our side. As a C3 lobbyist group, we're a grassroots lobbyist group. So we're not allowed to necessarily ask them, please vote in this way, but we're allowed to let them know what our opinions are and why it's important for us to see certain changes happening. So really the language that we use in these meetings is very important. And then on day 2, we started with a rally at the Capitol. It was a press conference where we had a couple of people from all the different organizations that collaborated with Speak. So we had the Sea Alliance, we had People Power for Florida, Florida Student Power, GenCLEO, as well as Poder Latinx and a couple other local organizations. After the speeches, we had a little bit of chanting where we're kind of telling them we're here for the future and we're here for the students. And we actually had a representative come out and thank us for this actually while we were at the rally. So that was a really great way to start off the morning. It kind of put us all in a very positive mood, saying that we are welcomed here and we are valued here. From then, we split off into our groups. Each group was assigned a different list of representatives. And then from there, each group was allowed to decide which bills they would like to touch on. That morning, I had a meeting with the House Minority Leader, as well as 4 more meetings, 3 with House representatives and 1 with senators. And the senator that I met with is actually my senator, so that was very interesting to me. After that, I had the opportunity to give a speech on climate optimism. They had a room for us in the old Capitol building. It was like where the senators and the House members used to sit back when they used that specific building. So it was really, really cool to be able to be in this like historic location and be able to give a speech in a room that's like so ingrained in Florida history. And from there, we closed the day with another rally and we went on the buses back home to Tampa. So although it was 2 days, it was a very packed 2 days. We spent basically our entire time either in committee meetings listening in or in like specific meetings with representatives, letting them know like what their constituents think is important and why we would like them to vote a certain way based on what we feel. These representatives, their constituency bases are so large that it's really difficult for them to understand or to be aware of what each individual voter wants. So events like this are very important to kind of show them that this is important to a large group of people.
I just wanted to add that the great part about like this event was the fact that you didn't really have to know everything about the bills. They have like these one-pagers that let you like, the basic details, what the bill number is, who wrote it, why it's important, why you should talk about it. And so that means that even people who don't really have a political science background or environmental policy background could still come and like showcase why they support this bill. So that was really awesome.
I'm sure that means a lot to students, and I'm sure that being there in person felt incredibly empowering. What is it like to be there physically present versus, doing stuff here back home on campus?
It was honestly kind of surreal because the whole day was filled with so much to do that there wasn't really a moment to take in how impactful and important it was. And then I went home and it hit me that I had done probably the most important thing I had done in my life at this point. It was my first experience being able to speak to elected officials, and just having them validate the fact that they do care and that they are listening to us was very important to me, because it can be a little discouraging when you're here and you're not in Tallahassee, and instead of being able to directly speak to them, we're doing stuff like phone banking. And oftentimes when we're calling, we're getting secretaries and we're getting aides, and those individual perspectives are extremely important as well. But the value of being able to speak to your specific representative or your specific senator is unmatched. Genuinely very, very very cool experience. We do this every single year, and you don't even have to be a college student to go. You just have to be 18 years old and under 30, and they pay for the transportation, they pay for the lodging, they pay for the dinner, and they pay for the training. So really, it's just about getting people the opportunity to do things like this and kind of be part of the civic and political process.
I also wanted to add that I thought it was so crazy that it was it was January and it was freezing. It was 30, and which all of these are Floridians. I'm from up north, so I can kind of handle it, but these guys are Floridians. Some of them from Miami, so they cannot handle 30-degree weather. They're shivering. Yet there's 300 people outside the Capitol, waving their signs and yelling about how it matters, how working for climate bills is so important. And so that's really shocked me that 300 college students who you think don't care, they do care. They're willing to go out there in freezing weather to do that.
I think it goes to show, like you said, how important it is to so many people, but also talking with so many different people. I'm sure you came across groups that had beliefs that you maybe hadn't considered, or you were talking to representatives that did have differing views from you. Was there something during that conversation that kind of changed your perspective or made you look at something a different way?
For the most part, with all of my meetings with representatives, they kind of agreed with everything we said, specifically because I did meet with the two representatives that had written the bills that we were trying to get passed. So they fully agreed with everything we were saying because it's in their own specific interest as well. So I didn't really experience maybe a statement that challenged my belief during this event.
I definitely had some representatives who challenged my way of my belief. They definitely stated stuff like the way we're going about it is not necessarily the best, which I definitely took that into account. I was thinking of ways that, since everyone really wants to fight this climate crisis and they definitely want affordable energy, everyone. So I've definitely took those into account, but I'm still, took that into account and still went through talking about these bills.
Now, thinking a little bit bigger picture, as your organization, GenCLEO, continues to grow, what upcoming projects or goals are you most excited for? And in your opinion, why is it so important for other students to be involved in them?
So we have 3 main campaigns this year. The first campaign is our biggest and most important campaign. We're working to help reinstate the Office of Sustainability at USF. So in 2010, USF passed something called the USF Climate Action Plan, which basically created rules and regulations for environmental and sustainability processes in the future. And that document created something called the Office of Sustainability. And this office was kind of just supposed to be like the regulation agency within the university, kind of being in charge of things like recycling, emissions reports, and other things of that nature. But in 2020, that office was removed from campus. And since then, we have been petitioning the administration to bring it back. So this year, we're very excited with this new change in leadership to have a new opportunity to bring this petition back and maybe kind of bring this to fruition. This is something that I've personally been working on since 2022. So as I'm graduating this semester, it would be a really great thing if we can get a little bit more momentum behind this project. We're collaborating with things like student government as well as the Climate Teach-In, and we're actually going to be participating in the Climate Summit, which is going to be on 2/17, and there we're going to try to have the Coalition of Student Environmental Orgs focus on this petition specifically. We also have a campaign about education through the arts. So a lot of people who are in the environmental space and in the STEM background, like they've heard all of these things already. They're learning about it in class. It's a lot of doom and gloom when it comes to things about the climate. It can be very scary to confront the fact that our future is not promised to us in this moment if we don't make changes now. So we are partnering with musical and artistic orgs like Rock USF and Stampede Sounds, as well as like through the Climate Teach-In, we're going to be partnering with orgs like the Contemporary Art Club. So that way we're reaching a new type of student, like maybe somebody who doesn't have a formal academic background in the sciences. And at these events, our main focus is kind of just accessibility of language. A lot of times when people want to talk about the climate, they use these high-level formal academic terms. And really, like, that's really good that people know these terms, but when you're talking to the average individual, you need to make sure that they can understand you as well. And you don't want to alienate people by using terms that are too formal. So at these events, it's kind of just to not only gain support for the for our fight for the climate, but also to make sure that every single person feels included, feels heard, and feels like they're able to understand. So feel like they also have a seat at the table. And then our third campaign is election awareness. So this year, actually, the Student Green Energy Fund is going up for reinstatement on the ballot, and the elections are from March 2nd to March 5th. And so we're collaborating with a couple other different organizations, as well as like student government is doing a really great job kind of getting the word out. I know they've had a couple meetings to just like allow students to come in and tell their perspectives about what they think is important. So we want to continue in this like collaborative spirit and kind of just invite every single student to know that not only do we have elections, but your voice matters so much and your vote matters so much.
Yeah, I didn't even realize like we talk about voting on like the local level or for our counties, but we constantly forget about voting at USF itself and how our voice does matter when we vote here as well. Do you guys have a favorite like part about climate action that you're particularly passionate about?
When it comes to climate action, the thing I'm most interested in is, again, interacting with our politicians and represented figures. I think that civil engagement is really important. And I'm a USF senator, so this midterm I was voted in. And I believe that getting involved civilly as a senator has allowed me to grow in my understanding of the climate action, and in fighting for what we believe in, I believe it's benefited me as a person. I feel like I've gotten stronger in the way I speak, stronger in the way I hold my beliefs. And for those people who are incredibly passionate about the climate, I mean, I know in Florida we all are, because we're surrounded by the ocean, we're surrounded by the water. Our hobbies are focused around, say, surfing, going sailing even. These are directly impacted by the climate crisis, and by engaging with our elected officials and advocating for climate action, we can help what we love to grow and become better through our participation in working towards what we believe in.
I think when you reframe it like that to, hint at those things that we know and we love, like our environment, the beaches that we all enjoy, the outdoor water activities that we all enjoy. When you put it like that, I think a lot of more people will be willing to listen and advocate for things like that. So I think that's amazing. As we wrap up, what is one message you think is really important for students to hear in regards to protecting our environment and our future?
I would say the power is in your hands. I would say go out there, vote, get engaged, because your voice matters more than you know.
And I would also say specifically for USF campus, any support we can get on our petition to reinstate the office would be incredibly appreciated. We just want USF to be the best school that it can be. And as we've already promised to make this action, I think it's only right that we fulfill the action. And once the action is fulfilled, it's going to put USF in a much better standing, and kind of just like we will be one of those preeminent schools with a functioning office of sustainability, and it will just put us that much more above like other universities. And so I think it would be a really beautiful thing for USF to be able to grow in this way. So I think, students here, we really do have the voice, we really do have the power. And so use your voice, use your power. Don't feel like just because you're a student or a young individual that you don't have a say in things, because really it's our life, it's our future. And it's up to us right now.
I would say what Caro's shirt says, action is the antidote to despair. It's very scary times right now, but the way to solve that is to do action, whether that is sign the Office of Sustainability petition, whether that's the vote, like Max said, it's to do something. And you need to take action, otherwise there's nothing.
Absolutely. That's wonderful advice for all the students. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, so Fabi, we're back in the studio. What did you think of today's episode?
It was so much fun. I really liked hearing about all the different ways that GenCLEO is involved, especially in their Rally for Tally. That would be really cool. I'm really excited to see all the photos and how it went for them.
I think it was such an educating event where they were able to not only share their voice, but absorb the voices of other organizations around them. And it was a really great learning activity. And I was surprised that so many people could get involved with it. I had no idea that that was a thing. And I think it's so cool that organizations on campus present that sort of opportunity to students.
Absolutely. It's super empowering to be part of a student organization. You think of that as maybe only something when you're, in your career, or something like that. But it's really something that anyone can get involved in, especially if you're here at USF.
And just to echo their words, change starts now. So if you guys are interested in similar events or looking for other advocacy exposure opportunities, don't forget to check out the Honor Roll newsletter and our website at usf.edu/honors for upcoming events, updates, and news.
That'll do it for this week's episode. The Honor Roll podcast is recorded in the Judy Genschaft Honors College at the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Production assistance is provided by USF students Vama, Shah, and Nicholas Henry. Thank you all so much for listening, and please do not forget to rate and review our podcast, as we really appreciate your feedback. Tune in next time to hear more honor stories and talk to more members of the Judy Genschaft Honors College.
Until next time, go Bulls!